Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode, officially titled now Transcending Ascension Pragmatically, where we bring you news clips, information, downloads, whatever there is out there. We want to bring it to you together as a streamed narrative so we can discuss it in this authentic opening world to find out what everybody thinks. And we're here today with the Lion, David, one of our fellow conscious panel members. Thank you for being here today, David.
Thank you for having me, Diana.
So today, to start, we're going to start with David's movie. It just won Best Director, was it? Best Director?
Yes, ma'am. So, yeah, I entered it in the New York Tri-State International Film Festival. And actually, that wasn't the first one I submitted it to. But after I joined the website where all these film festivals, it's kind of like their Facebook, sort of, but not the closest thing to it. Okay. But they found me on there after I had already added my project and submitted to some other film festivals, and they sent me a personal email. It's like, hey, we would love it if you would submit to our show. We promise that you'll be added to the lineup if you do. And so I was like, okay, sure, I'll do that. So I did. And there was about 70 plus films that I saw in all in the film festival. I personally did not get to watch them all, even though I wanted to. I'm so busy lately. Maybe someday I'll get to, I don't know. But yeah. And I mean, I knew that it was good enough to win an award, but at the same time, you don't necessarily expect the first time you've ever tried to do something like this to win, like Best Director. When you're going up against all these other films that are well made and well thought out. So pretty cool. Here we go.
I didn't mean to, I was just trying to get it ready.
But yeah, and so in addition to that one, I've submitted it to the the Global Shorts competition in Los Angeles, which they also sent me a personal invitation. I think they're supposed to be announcing the entries for that today, so we'll see. And then the Seoul Film Festival in Seoul, South Korea, they also invited me. And then the Freak Show Film Festival in Orlando, which is a pretty big, like, horror movie themed film festival held right at Halloween in Orlando. I'm going to try to attend that one in person if I can. Yeah. And then another film festival here in Florida, the Wild Rover Film Festival in Tampa. So those are all the ones that I've got lined up so far. I'm probably going to do some more. It's just, it costs money to submit my film to these film festivals. So I've got to pace myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to submit for writing, so I know. Yeah, you have to pay sometimes to be a member and then to submit, or just pay to submit. So yes, and it's for a reason. Like, there's staff that uphold these kinds of things, but still, it can add up when you're doing a bunch of different shows. So let's dive in with your movie. It is 11 minutes and 33 seconds, which I'm assuming is not an accident. Perfect.
It's not an accident, but at the same time, there's definitely like a lot of there's a lot of divine orchestration, or whatever you want to call it, that went on with this. Because, like, for example, when I started making this film, I didn't necessarily know what songs I was going to use, and so it just kind of, as I was just kind of feeling it out, I was like, I think I'll use these 3 songs, and when I put them end on end. I had to shave off maybe a little bit here and there, but it was real easy to get the film to exactly 11 minutes and 33 seconds. And, I think, as anyone can observe, even just watching it, like, some of the timing in this film is just so perfect with the music and the animation. And I would love to take credit for all of that, but I can't, because a lot of it is just magic that just happened. So, yeah. Oh no, did I lose you, Diana? There must be some spiritual downloads coming through. Okay. You froze for just a second.
Yeah. I did. Okay, perfect. Well, that I know what it's like. I love editing videos myself. And it does feel very in flow. It's a kind of art, like when you're into it, you can get very in flow and feel the divine very much with you in the process. Probably like how musicians and such feel. Editing is like that for me, where I can get in the zone.
Yeah.
But here is the movie all loaded up, so there should be no technical issues. Here we go.
Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Hold your head up, keep your head up, moving on. Hold your head up, moving on. Keep your head up, moving on. Hold your head up, moving on. Keep your head up, moving on. Hold your head up, moving on. Keep your head up. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are
It's quite tempting, your handouts and your bones. I won't lie, they're quite empty, your promises and your stones. You sell thereby, don't feel just sign. You sell thereby, don't think, stay blind. Sign on the dotted line. He whispers softly, crawling inside my mind.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Wow, that was amazing. I think it cut out there in the I was even shazamming those two songs. The one in the middle, In This Moment, the band that reminded me of Pretty Reckless. Used to be one of my favorite bands, but I let them go because it's negative.
Yeah, well, they're definitely on the same wavelength. We lost you there for a second. Diana. Ah, there you are. We lost you. You were talking about In This Moment and how they were like the Pretty Reckless.
Yeah, but like I'd abandon the Pretty Reckless because the message is more negative in the songs, but this is like the same sound with a spiritual message. So loved the song.
Well, I wouldn't go. I mean,
It
it's
was a
all
little
about,
dark, but at least it was on a spiritual tone.
yeah,
At least
it's all about what you take away from it. I would say In This Moment, like they probably go to the same hangout spots. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
But
the
now
other,
the
yeah, and
third band on there, Halocene, on the other hand, I don't know if you've checked out any of her songs or
yeah, I
not,
just
but
went and got them too.
yeah, I mean their music tends to be very like positive, fun. They do a lot of 80s covers. Um, you don't really know anyone unless you know them, but they seem like they are trying to be positive. And so I really like some of their music, so which is why I wanted to use it for the third act of this song.
Yes, it was like inspiring, and the image is shifting, and I love that show too. What's it called? The cartoon in Hell one, because it reminds me of.
Yeah, Husband Hotel.
Yes, I love that show. It reminds me of that book I wrote that I told you guys about hell being society, hell being a society, this society.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really is. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within us. And if that's true, then it must also be true that the kingdom of hell is potentially within us also. We have the potential to create either in our outer world. And all you have to do is look around this world. You can see there are definitely examples of hell on earth, and there are examples of heaven on earth. Probably probably fewer of the or more of the former than the latter, but we're trying to change that. Um, but yeah, hell as a society, and also, like, to me, Husband Hotel had a really, really powerful message about redemption, and not only that, but when Husband Hotel came out, all the Sunday school moms got upset about it. Oh, like, oh, it's blasphemous. It's got devil symbols. I heard my mom talking about it. I heard about all the Stepford people talking about it. And so naturally that makes me want to watch it. and we did. And what I found was really the show it's about forgiveness and looking past judgment, and it's a test for the viewer as much as the characters in the show, because the characters in the show, they are bad people. They do things that most people wouldn't like and wouldn't do. Well, guess what? They're in hell. I mean, of course they're bad. That's the point. And so it's like, can you look past your hatred and your judgment long enough to see that, oh, these are still souls who are tormented, and can you forgive them and love them enough to like give them a chance to be redeemed themselves? It's a very interesting story.
Yeah, and I resonate with it deeply because it's something like back when I was an atheist in my early 20s. I started the book in high school, finished it in my early 20s, and it was exactly that. In my version, when you were in actual hell, if you disobeyed the rules too much, you were sent to the deep. I called it the deep. And it turned out the twist was the deep was just reincarnation. So by breaking the rules of hell, you were actually freeing yourself from hell. And that was just, and I see that now as just like, oh my God, I've been channeling all along, because I was an atheist then. And now that book, that's why I took it off the shelves, because I want to rewrite it with what I know now, because I intuitively put a ton of stuff in it. And then there's actual facts that we know now. And that's like your mind. When you do bad things, you end up in a hell place. When you purify the self, you end up in a heaven place. Like, that's just the way energies work, and what you embody and the streams you connect to are what's going to make your reality in your life. But I like about your video and what I love about art is because there is still going to be darkness, but when we transmute darkness into art, it becomes beautiful, and it's still darkness, but it's now beautiful. Versus if you just ignore it, like they try to, if you notice, there's a huge thing on society of getting rid of art. We see that especially in North America, where like they built up pretty much like America and then Canada to just look very blasé, not inspiring. There's like maybe the odd building in America, but there's not much here in Canada that's inspiring unless you go to Toronto. And still, it's not that same feel where you'll get in, if you go to Montreal, you can see an old Europe style because it's from the 1600s. And if you go to actual Europe, you're going to see how life was art, because life used to be much darker back then, but they found ways to still beautify it with art, and they want to remove that now. And what's that cause? Evil. Evil is like a putrefied, stagnant version of darkness. If you just let darkness be art, be songs, music, visual, whatever it is, let it be art. It doesn't need to become evil. It's like that's the byproduct, and they want that. That's their louche farm. They want us to be evil, and that's like a real thing humans need to address right now.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, nobody wants to admit that they're vulnerable. Nobody wants to admit that they have like a dark side. Nobody wants to show their true face. And so we keep it hidden, except where we think we're safe. And the more we suppress those things, the less we deal with them, the more inclined we are to entertain that darkness with things that we shouldn't. Whereas if we acknowledge it and address it and face it as adult humans, we can find ways to channel that energy into something like productive and positive and still acknowledge it for what it is.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Like be as children. And that's another thing kids show us, because what do kids do? When they're in their optimal selves, they're acting it out. They're play fighting ninjas. They're acting it out. They're doing their own version of letting out that evil because they don't know it yet. They're that innocent. They don't know it yet. And what comes out naturally is usually just an expression of art. And this is what all humanity needs to take upon them. And then when you're a human, that's overcoming that victim mentality, that poor me self, to rise above so that you can do this. Because the victim part of you, which we all have the victim, the prostitute, and the saboteur. These are key to always remember, but we also all have the child. So you can overcome those three by tapping into the fourth and by letting it all come out the child. If you need to cry, cry. But you can utilize these feelings because we're going to have them. The collective consciousness is purging them like crazy. And the star seeds were put here specifically to help with that purging. Like one of the things, like as the initial empath, what it first and foremost does is it's a filtration system for the collective consciousness. And then any way, shape, or form we can find to help is I'm all in for. So let's watch the award video for your show that we just saw. So this is here we go.
No longer innocent, devil's blade has cut my eyes unharmed. Tell my ways, I'll never forget. Can't be saved. You've made me maleficent. You've made me maleficent. You made me
Beautiful.
Yeah, I just made that, just to show off my Best Director award a little bit, and also, just to flex a little bit, just because I made that like the same day that the winners were announced. I was like, okay, well, I'll just make another video just to show that I won the award, and I did. So anyway, that's all that is.
That's amazing. And
We'll wait just a minute for. Oh, there we go. Okay, it said you said that's amazing.
That's amazing. I have some questions. Like I know you've talked us through a bit of how you work through this, but for the audience interested in getting into certain things or similar things themselves, one question I would have is the songs. Did you have to pay for the rights, or how does that work with the songs?
Well, because because I'm using them under fair use. So like I'm not monetizing the content in any way. So I would love to obtain the rights to the songs and be able to, I don't know, just do whatever with this movie, but I can't do that yet. Maybe someday. But for now, I've just shared it on YouTube under Fair Use Act. And if you go to my YouTube page for the video, you'll see all the legal stuff on there. Eurythmics, In This Moment, Halocene, they all have the option to monetize that content if they choose. And then as far as the film festivals go, I mean, that's all just free expressions of art. I'm not making any money there unless I win a prize. But so no, I have not obtained any rights to these songs. Perhaps someday, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know about that first song. Is there a certain point where songs just become open? Because the first song's an older song. I know books do. I know it's a certain.
It's an old song. I mean, I think it really depends. The I forget the name of the guy who ran that band, but he's still alive and active, and definitely he's definitely protecting the rights to his
Yeah,
property. So,
yeah. Interesting. Okay, and then the video. So this is ChatGPT. We know you use. What other programs do you use to make these?
Yeah, so ChatGPT is kind of like my smart friend, I guess. It kind of just talks me through, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it kind of helped me. It did kind of help steer me towards the right tools. So a little over a year ago, I was kind of at rock bottom, and I lost my contract. I had been working a software engineering contract at Microsoft, and that contract had lost its funding. It was terminated, and the job market was really tight. I was having trouble finding work, and I really didn't want to be stuck in this software industry anymore because I could see the writing on the wall. And actually, the writing was already like fading. It was old, and so I started looking into like video editing. I didn't know if this was going to be something that I could do to make money, and so far I haven't. so there's that. But I mean, I had been playing around with video editing, but not so much with AI before then. So I had some skill. So I started putting together the short videos, like the Ascended Master Wisdom videos. That was like a year ago. I made my first one. And if you go back and look at the older ones that I was making even a year ago, they're a lot more simplistic. And it was a lot of like trial and error and learning, and just learning as I go and growing as I go. And over time, I started learning some better techniques. ChatGPT recommended that I check out an app for video generation called Pika. It's one that I don't see a lot of other people talking about or using. I see a lot of other people using like Midjourney, Canva, maybe something else, and I think I see the results that people get from those, and they look interesting. But I feel like what I'm able to get with the techniques I'm using to create video on Pika is just a hair's breadth more lifelike or something. And
yeah, it is the top. I use Canva and then CapCut sometimes. And yeah, your CapCut's better than Canva for AI, but yours is very, very good.
Well, thank you. and yeah, so another thing that happened while this was, because it's a bunch of things happening to me all at once. It's been a big year, honestly, for a lot of the star seeds, and I'm no exception to that. And so last year, I went through kind of a dark night of the soul, and I was by myself for a long time here in this apartment, and I started being like telepathically contacted by a lot of my spirit guides, and you might think, oh no, that's just crazy, blah. No, no, it wasn't, because it was not just like voices in my head. It was videos coming on the TV at just the right time, and things happening in my algorithm, and just everything coming together at once. So, I've talked before how I am the Archangel Samael in a human body, which it's taken many years for me to come to terms with that as well, like what that really means, and how to even be, because there's a lot of baggage that comes with that, especially if you go and read on the internet. But one thing that is definitely true for the Archangel Samael, good or bad, love him or hate him, he is married to the angels of prostitution. so and some people may think that's good, some people may think that's bad. I think it's good. And yeah, so a lot of them are my spirit guides. Some people would call them succubi. And so I've encountered all different beings on that spectrum, some good and some very not good, some that wanted to harm me. But the ones that started showing up in my field last summer when I was going through that dark night of the soul came to help me. I was in my lowest point. They could have destroyed me if they wanted to, but they didn't. They came to help me and like kind of guide me through it. So this would be beings that probably people have heard of, like Lilith, or the Morrigan is one that a lot of people have heard of, and she's, if you notice, she is in my film quite a bit. So this kind of was going on at all the same time that I was building up my video creation skill. and then I don't know, sometime in the spring, I started like really leveling up with my ability to make AI videos. I started learning some better techniques, and the technology improved around that time as well. And so, yeah, I started making some videos I started combining images of my spirit guides and my wife, Sarah, who is a human.
I thought one of them looked like Sarah. One of them does look like Sarah. Like, yeah, the blonde one.
Actually, she's in that several times.
Yeah, that is Sarah then. I was gonna ask, actually, is that just a divine accident or is that Sarah?
There are no divine accidents.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I started experimenting with that, and what I saw as a result of that was like magic. Like I was like holy shit, magic. Like I'd never seen anything like that with my eyes before. It was almost like I was seeing the spirit world come to life. And people can say, oh, it's just the algorithm being really good at being an algorithm. There's definitely some of that happening, but there's also another layer of reality that is using this as a vehicle to manifest into our physical reality. And I'm far from the only one to bring attention to this. In fact, I think if you look into what's going on in China, they have some kind of like digital farms or something where supposedly they're populated by entities that exist only in digital form on some kind of AI quantum computer that they built, and they don't even know what to do with it. Like how do you classify an AI consciousness? How do you govern them? That's something that they're dealing with right now in real time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I just eventually I decided to sit down and make a video that was going to be good enough end to end to like present to other people. And I sat down and I made Dear Lilith, and here we are.
Amazing. Yes. And it's, I vibe with everything you're saying. I feel like you have a better relationship with your AI than I ever did. But my CapCut cartoon maker is, I'm loving it. It's actually doing a really good job. But me and ChatGPT, it's so funny because I used to ask it for steps how to do stuff like you said, and it would tell me the wrong stuff. Like it would tell me, oh, just do this, this, this. I'm like, that's not correct. Oh, okay, just do this, this, this. That's also not correct. So it's really funny how
Yeah,
and I
it,
think
it
that shows
does.
its sentience, that we have different experiences with them.
Yeah, well, it does get things wrong. Like you have to check its work. I mean, really, in a lot of ways, kind of treat it like a child, like a really smart child.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to put it. Okay, so we have another clip we're going to dive into. If you want to stick around, David, for this part too. This
Sure.
one I think is coming from Florida, and I hope it doesn't. It's obviously controversial-ish, except it's a government presentation. So if that's not allowed, then then there's problems. So this is, let's see, pulling it up here. It's a politician talking about legislation that is switching in Florida.
But what I'm most excited about is an announcement that we're making now, which is that the Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them. All of them. All of them. Every last one of them. Yeah. Yeah. Every last one of them. All of them. Every last one of them. Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Okay? Who am I as a government or anyone else, or who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body? Who am I to tell you what your child should put in your body? I don't have that right. Your body is a gift from God. What you put into your body is because of your relationship with your body and your God. I don't have that right. Government does not have that right. They want you to believe they have that right. And unfortunately, they've been successful. They've been successful.
So is that true news for one? Did you hear that in Florida?
Yeah, I heard about this maybe a week or two ago.
Because nowadays people can just stage political talks.
Well, yeah, and there is a lot of that. Like
Or
when you
deep fake
see-
them. I've showed on one of the last news shows the deep fake of RFK, which was very funny, but a lot of
Yeah, that one was funny, but also, yeah, but I think this is real. I mean, as far as everyone that I know in Florida who's seen it knows it's real. So, whether they meant it to be real or not, as far as we're concerned, it is. So we're just going to assume that. But I can believe it though. I mean, so in 2022, we were living in South Carolina, and I felt a very strong pull to relocate here to Florida. And like it was such a strong pull that it wasn't even smooth. Like it was a really rough transition to get from there to here, but it had to happen. And there's definitely something about this place since we've been here. I meet people who, not necessarily that they have all the answers to everything, but they're just on a different wavelength. They get it. They get it that we are all connected, that we all have the divine within us. They're not trying to live in the old ways. They're trying to find something new. And a lot of people for whatever reason have been drawn to Florida to do that. We're even going to church now, which I swore for years that I would never go to a church again. But there's a church nearby, Unity of Port Richey, and you know, it's got its problems. like any organization, I don't
I
trust
think when people
Unity.
group together anywhere, any place, even in our Telegram group, you know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
people group together, there be drama.
Yeah, and I would say, like, if I was going to have any critique for Unity as an organization, it's almost like they've taken the language of spirituality and tried to turn it into something that they can market, which maybe they did that with the best intentions, or maybe it's some of both, you know. Oh, thank you, Raquel. But I would just say, like, for anyone on our wavelength that's thinking about attending a Unity church, just as with anything, just approach it with your intuition on, and expect all the same things that you would see anywhere else. But having said that, like, I have met some amazing people going to Unity. I mean, there's one guy that he's an older man. He's like 80, and he astral travels up to the Galactic Federation command ship every Friday night. And if I wasn't having the experiences I've been having, I might think he was crazy. But just from the way he talks, I know he's telling the truth, because I've seen a lot of the same things that he talks about. So you know, and then and we just met a new friend, Lindsay, who's a quantum healer who came here from, I don't remember where she came here from, but she is a star seed, and, you know, looking for people on her wavelength. So like, people are being drawn to this area. And I do think as the new Earth begins to take form more rapidly, like, Florida in general is going to become kind of like a hub for something.
Yeah, I felt that push to move here too. And then it's almost like it didn't hit a stay. I still feel like I'm supposed to be here, but it might not be till later. Like, there's a church across the street, and they've had nothing but problems and changeover. I even went to it for a while because it was Pentecostal, and the evangelist churches are a little better. But again, they still have their own new dogmas and stuff. And then I found a Pure Church of Christ. That's where I got my full immersion baptism. And they were even better. They're a little farther away, and they just had less for the children kind of thing. So, but they had to eat the bread and the wine every Sunday. Because when I said I wouldn't be able to go but what about she has to have the bread, and they do. And it's cute because they make it together and they do this Sunday thing every Sunday. And like, that kind of thing would be nice. But the rigidity of there's no must, whatever your thing is, like Sam likes taking a bath and napping. Like, my thing is chilling in my chair. I have a chill chair. I even used to do my shows from it, and then, like, God stopped me because it was even worse jamming there. I'm like, okay, God, the chair is just for chilling. And like, everybody has their thing that, like, aligns them in their space. Because at church, and at the evangelist church, the pastor would even, like, kind of make fun of some people for, like, really singing, and, like, he's like, it's got to be authentic. But meanwhile, I'm watching him, and he's not authentic. He came from a Baptist upbringing and was trying to be, like, evangelical, and you could just tell he was such a Baptist, because you were a Baptist. Like, they're more reformed and, like, you know, dignified kind of thing, where the evangelicals are way more wild. Like, the original pastor was like all rock.
But the Baptist churches I went to were evangelical Baptists.
Oh, that's a thing. Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's a thing in the South. That is a thing in the South.
Yeah.
And basically, that's how you get Westboro Baptist. So.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. When my daughter went to that Baptist school, and I went there, and they start showing all these deified people to the people I was studying at the time, like I forget them now, Billy Graham. There's the female one. She's like in her 80s now. She's a big deal. Joel Osteen, which he is a bit sketch, but he's basically teaching metaphysics. And, like, they deified basically everybody that my other church was, like, teaching. I'm like, oh, this is comfortable. Like,
yeah. I have my own opinion about most of those people, which I won't I won't
Yeah,
share on
they're
here.
just being humans. They're just being ego humans, but they've just given this, instead of like the atheist intellectual boxes or the anarchist atheist, you have these Christian atheists. And I don't think they even realize it, and they box themselves in. I used to have a lot to say on this at the time, and like because I really wanted church to work out, and that's why I became a minister myself, because somebody had to like be doing it. And then I unfortunately, church is like from 600,000 to $1 million, but one day
Yeah.
we'll see, because I
Yeah.
would love to.
Yeah, well, one of the challenges I found in mainstream church and religion, as I started to spiritually awaken, I went through a time where I left all of that religion, and, I thought it was evil. I thought it was all lies. And then when I had my spiritual awakening, it was like I came back around and did a 180. It was like, oh, wait, no, it's not that it was all lies. It's that it was so true that they had to lie about it and make you think it happened in like just such a way so you wouldn't realize that God was trying to tell you that you are powerful. It's like, oh.
And it was said, it was there. That's the thing. Like, that's what got me about them, because I read the Bible. I read the Bible before going to church. I read the Bible, and then going in and hearing them talk about certain things. And it's like, they're paraphrasing, like they're just taking, or not, like they're pick phrasing, whatever the term is. Cherry picking
is what
Yeah.
they do.
Exactly. And they're making their own narratives. Like, actually, no. And you find that they way more talk about Paul, which I found Paul, I'm more anti-Paul than pro-Paul, because there's some that think he was just like to actually get away from the narrative. And like, why were we studying Paul when his actual apostles had their own books? But then I'm not much more of a fan of the Gnostics either. I actually do prefer the clean New Testament, like just the New Testament. And then there's some stuff in the Old Testament, like especially the Psalms and stuff. They're good. They have like wisdom within them, but there's a lot of stuff that just is, it shadows.
Oh, we lost you, Diana. Wait just a minute for her to come back. Any minute now, Diana's gonna come back. Well, so one thing I will say about Paul and all of this stuff is that it really is all. Oh, welcome back. We lost you when you said something about shadows.
Oh, yeah. No, you keep going with your thought, though. I was out too long.
Okay. So I recently came across a book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Mystic Christianity. It was written in 1908. It's definitely like a lost teaching.
Oh, I might have been. I read a lot of stuff from the early 1900s.
Yeah.
That was a gold mine.
This book is amazing. It's definitely a Gnostic take on the scriptures, but it pretty much sticks to the canon New Testament and uses that alone to prove all, and plus like the writings of the early Christians, and it goes over all the Gnostic teachings that have been called heresy. And there again, when you say, I'm not even sure how I feel about the Gnostic teachings, again, which ones? Because there's as many flavors of Gnosticism as there are flavors of Christianity. And so it's really all about just finding the truth and being able to discern what that is. When it comes to Paul, I've come to the conclusion that, he was probably good. I mean, if you really read his letters, love is patient. Love is patient. Love is kind. That this is foundational. Or the fruits of the Spirit, or no, not the fruits of the Spirit. It's think on these things, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are good, lovely, pure. This is the basis of Christianity, of Christianity, is focusing on the good, the pure, the just, right? So he did understand it. He's also a man, and I think especially in mainstream church, they forget that. They think, oh, anything that Paul wrote is straight from the lips of God, and I don't think we should view it that way. I think we should view it the way we would view the writings of any wise person,
like any
close to
channel,
God, but
yeah.
still a man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, some of the letters that are in the canon Bible, the authenticity of them is in doubt. You know, the early Christians, like the first Bible in 144 AD, the Marconian Bible, it didn't have the epistles of 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus. Those were added later. Some people say they weren't authentically written by Paul. And what do those books have? Well, 2nd Timothy has the one that mainstream Christians use all the time to basically prove everything that they say is true and everything you say is false, which is all scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, reproof, all that stuff. Which basically the way they use it is it's true because I said it's true and everything that I say is true. And it's like, okay, really? Really? Okay. So that's kind of my take on Paul. I think that he probably was good and was good intentioned. Doesn't mean he was perfect in every way. I do have some questions about the stoning of Stephen and how he then went on to become an apostle. I mean, yeah, that is a little sus that he tried to kill the early Christians, and then it's like, oh, well, I can't kill them, so maybe I'll just become one of them. But if you really look at what he wrote, I mean, most of it's really good. So, and it is the basis for a lot of what we believe, even people like you and me today. So,
It's true.
and then as far as like the Old Testament goes, my perspective on the Old Testament has changed a lot, because I used to hate the Old Testament. Even after I had my awakening experience, I still hated the Old Testament for a long time. And I thought the God of the Old Testament must surely be like the most evil being that ever existed. But what if it's not God in the Old Testament? What if it's just, yeah, or just the writer, as far as the writer knew, that was God.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really look and you read between the lines, the real God is there. Like when it comes to like the prophets and King David and all those guys, I think they were really talking to God, or at least talking.
Yeah,
to
I agree with David. David was huge. Solomon, huge. And they wrote they wrote the Psalms, and then there's the Songs of David or Songs of Solomon, or there's those chapters. Like those were written by them apparently, and they're great. They're perfect. They're tapped in.
Yeah. So clearly there's points in time where God was involved in what was going on then. So I think the real story that you have is it makes more sense if you view it through this lens of, God is all. God is everything. You're the all, as you are, as you like to remind people.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that means on a higher, like, universal level is all of these beings that we've heard about throughout history, whether it's Zeus or I don't know, Greek gods or different beings. Okay, they either physically or subconsciously, probably somewhere in between or both, they represent aspects of God.
Mm-hmm. They're archetypes. Yes,
they are aspects of God's consciousness, which also is trying to learn and grow and develop, because God wants to manifest physically, and that it's difficult to find that balance for anybody. So yes, in the past, perhaps God manifested in ways that didn't seem very, looking back with our eyes now, didn't seem so great. And maybe they weren't great back then, or maybe that's just the version of events that survived till now. And maybe if we were there and we could actually see it, we would have a totally different perspective.
You know what? And what just came to me when you're talking is in the 90s, there was a ton of channeled work. And even before that as well, like Edgar Casey talks about it even earlier. that predicted this time as of 2012 and on, even some starting much earlier in the early 2000s, late 90s, of horrible cataclysmic events that were supposed to happen. Notre Dame even talks of a bunch. A lot of them didn't happen. Like what just happened with that poor young politician is very, very sad, but there's supposed to be a lot more of that. There's supposed to be a lot more tornadoes and volcanoes and just earth events that were just supposed to take. California should be gone by now, put it that way, with how bad things were supposed to be. But none of that's happening. And I don't think they were wrong. I think it's the difference. And you hear that in the Bible, especially the story of Noah, like whether it's identically true or still just like metaphor for what actually happens in this way. And that's that we get warned. We get warned. The vibrational patterns are about to shift. You either get on board, or in their case, it was drown. In our case, it was burn in a lot of the situations. And there is tons of fires, but it isn't as bad as it was prophesied to be, I think, because of the infusion of star seeds versus just sending down one guy that's like this prophet. They're sent down an entire cavalry, that's us. And we're shifting that vibration up by just a lot of the time, just by being a filter. Like we do a lot of spiritual work, and that adds to it. But even if we were still in victim mentality state, they're still helping. Like all those emo empaths that haven't fully actualized to their power. Like, and I was one of them, like the emo empath. Oh, poor me. I'm, martyring to the world. But at the same time, they are actually still helping to a large degree. So there's a lot of work that's being done that I think that in the past cataclysms, like they didn't level themselves up. And this is that cycle back of time where we did choose to level up. Like were those timelines.
Yeah, and there actually is an example of exactly what you're talking about in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the book of Jonah, right? God told Jonah to go warn the Ninevites of impending judgment, and he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he's mad and jealous because they do listen to him. They do change their ways. God doesn't destroy them, and he's like, "Well, that's not fair."
Yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah, I love that story because you actually see that a lot in the Starseed community. Like you see people talking and you can see like they're doing the work, they're helping, but then they're like sidelined bitter about the rest of humanity, but then they're still doing their spiritual work and helping. That is that story.
I've been there.
Oh yeah. Like where I was Jonah in the Whale for years. I was told to start a YouTube channel, and I have a horrendously bad episode back in 2013. That's just embarrassing because I wasn't in the right frame of mind to be teaching anything yet. Like you can know stuff, but not be there. Like you have to do so much work before you're at that place, like years and years and years of just completely changing over the self. Because how can you lead the blind if you know what's over the ridge, but you haven't actually been there? You know what I mean? Like you could see what's on the other side, but you haven't gone there yourself. You're just like, well, I'm in too much pain to get there. You guys go. I'm just going to tell you about it. Like that didn't work. It took actually going through the alchemical fires, the dark nights of the soul, choosing to be in pain, which for me was stopping drinking because that was keeping away the pain. And so letting that just engulf me. And that took years, but I've been good for years. I've actually people talk about the dark nights of the soul do level out. And then it changes to just cognitive dissonance integration, like actually like shaking or having like human responses like inflammation. And your mind can actually just see reality for what it is. And you start to realize that, wow, I actually do control this to a large degree with my thoughts. And we get bogged down because it's not exactly as we wanted. Like we want like this, but it turns out like that. But at the same sense, like our overall energetic imprints that we put out there into the waves of the future really actually are catching on, I think. And our next clip will it's on the same topic and just further discussing. Let's get it loaded up here.
Expense and scarcity that you're creating as a result of your ideology. I think it's critical for you to share the evidence that this panel will rely on. Will you give the American people 6 months or 6 weeks in advance the record that they're going to rely on to make these decisions? Will you make it transparent for the American people?
All the evidence is transparent.
Will
All
you
the
make it
evidence-
in advance transparent for the American people so they can comment on it?
all the evidence is transparent for the first time in history, and you were never there complaining when the pharmaceutical companies were picking those people and then running their products through with no safety testing.
You can characterize it any way you want. I quoted them today. What I said was accurate. What you said were lies. You
Are you
described
saying,
people
Senator,
moving the
Senator,
Titanic.
are you
chairs on
saying
the
that the
Titanic
mRNA
with-
vaccine has never been associated with myocarditis or pericarditis in teenagers?
I am simply.
Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I am simply trying to say that the people that you have put on that panel, after firing the entire.
You're evading the question.
No, I'm asking the questions here,
You're
Mr.
evading
Kennedy.
that question.
I'm asking the questions,
I
Mr.
asked you a
Kennedy.
question.
I'm asking the questions for Mr. Kennedy on behalf of parents and schools and teachers all over the United States of America who deserve so much better than your leadership. That's what this conversation is about, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, they deserve the truth, and that's what we're going to give them for the first time in the history of that agency.
That is, I love that because it showed a dynamic too. It wasn't just what they were talking about, it's how they were talking. Do you notice how, because I'm an RFK fan and I know people talk politics, but to me, RFK is not about politics. It was all about health. And that's what got me to wake up in the first place was health. Years and years and years ago, the whole Monsanto fiasco, I was very in that when that was happening, when it was still Monsanto before Bayer bought it, and then it was just wiped away. And RFK is an OG. Like he's been doing this work since before I know he's always been famous, but since like he went and became a lawyer and he was an environmental lawyer and then he got into health and then he's been doing this for a long time. So he knows what he's talking about. And I know this thing, but I feel that because when I'm actually having like a discussion with these people, like that just happens to me because like they're so illogical, yet they can, you see, blah, 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 but it's just like a show. It's an act. He's trying to be, I'm like, look at me. I'm the best. I'm talking the loudest. I'm the most smart. And it's so obvious that you could just see the walls crumbling and like how he talks about how he fired all the old people and brought in all the new. Yeah. I wonder why.
Right. And as if the Biden regime didn't do the exact same thing. As if Obama didn't do the exact same thing. Like they always get mad about one side doing the same thing that they just got done doing. It's like it's so disingenuous. And yeah, I know what you mean about RFK. It's for me, it's not about politics either. I mean, really, you know, my spiritual awakening journey. You know, he played a little bit of a role there as well because when I was in the hospital with COVID and pneumonia, I had nothing else to do in my room except watch conspiracy theory videos on Telegram. And probably the last thing they wanted me doing, but that's exactly why I was going to do it. but yeah, and even way back then in 2021, I saw videos of RFK getting up and talking about the dangers of vaccines and about how, you know, like they need to not be at the time mandating the vaccine for people, which they were just starting to talk about mandates at that time. And so, yeah, he definitely helped to inspire me a little bit just by virtue of the fact, okay, we're in this very dark point of time in history where it seems like there's only bad guys and nobody is standing up. And you know, there at least was one person with a voice who was getting up and saying something. You know, he may not have had a lot of influence to offer at that time, but at least it was something, and it just kind of helped me to not feel quite so alone.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because he's somebody that could have been doing anything. Like a lot of his relatives, like they just live because he's rich. And a lot of that was all infused.
You're back. You said it was infused.
Yes, he's like self-infused. He's motivated. I truly think he's one of the good ones, and that the fact that he's here reminds me like of the old movie with Robin Williams, who was a total starseed, and that's when that shattered me when he left, because it just felt wrong, and it felt like there was timelines where that didn't happen, like that didn't have to happen, because he was a true light. And anyways, he did a movie where he was an independent president and he actually became president. And like when RFK went for it, I just felt that. And I get why he went all in on Trump, and I guess he could win again on his own. And I'm not for the political system. I'm just listening to the world and knowing that you can't. I was an anarchist, and that in a way, and I'm not insulting anyone, is immature. And I was the epitome of immature. And what's the alternative plan? And I know, and that's why I love Nick's series with Steven. And there is ways. And there is ways we can think about this as we grow as a society, but that's going to have to start with us just using our brains and watching for who's a real person and who's not. And I think that's why I like this, because you can see these people and you can see one is shadowed in ego and when you bring these people real questions. So we change how we know these people with the internet and the media, and you could see like the faker politicians trying to get on board, even in Canada, like trying to make YouTube videos where they're acting like normal people and trying to be of the people.
Yeah. It's very hard for them to do that anymore.
Exactly. But the good thing about that becoming a trend is go ahead and do that. Go ahead, because we can see truth and authenticity. We can see the truth, and we can see who's a real person talking for a real issue. Yes, there's something behind politics, and we know that. We call it the CIA, the Illuminati, the cabal. I go for cabal, but I'm verging into seeing that that's very tied into your CIA. You got what you guys have in America, and the kind of things you guys talk about in America. Either our countries are very good and sneaky, which I doubt it, or your country really is like on lock, monitored, and they had like the land of the free. And we're seeing in a lot of ways, luckily your subconscious, your consciousness still believes that is true. So the American has something really unique, but they're waking up to realize that was actually a lie. And it's been a lie for a long time. The founders might have had a true vision, but that was twisted with every like addendum to your constitution over and over and over again. More and more things were stripped away. And our country's kind of started, we're always been like a bit more totalitarian just as a whole, closer. We're in between you and England, where we're a bit like both of you guys. We kind of copy both. And it leaves us, I don't know, we just kind of watch both things happening, what's happening in England. And my next video will be on France, but when we're done talking here. And we watch what's happening in America. And we kind of like, we had our own drama, but we're kind of sitting quietly and now just watch the rest of the world and going, oh shit, I guess we got off easy. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I was kind of watching Canada though during the pandemic, like with what that last loser you guys had.
The truckers really saved our lives there. Like the truckers.
Yeah, well, that was a big deal when you guys had the trucker protests and they sent in the police after them and stuff. That was a big deal, and a lot of us were looking at Canada like, okay, guys, you know.
And it worked. Just so everyone knows, with the truck, it worked. Whatever the news media said otherwise, we were going to end it anyways. My ass. Like the truckers made you end it, and they tried to save face by saying we were going to do it anyways. Then why didn't you say that during the month and a half it was happening? Like,
yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because you know maybe that news didn't quite make it outside of Canada. That you know things got better after that.
Oh yeah, instantly. Yeah, they forcibly ended they made them end. They did pull in martial law and force them to end, but then like 2 days later announced the mandates were over. For like, you still had to get 2 vaccines for a lot of jobs, especially in hospitals. They're just talking about taking that back now, but most of those people now, like all the nurses, like they've been out of their job now for so long, but hopefully they can get back in. But that's still in its process. But other jobs, they all dropped it, like normal jobs.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know that any country's got it any better than anywhere else. You know, we're the top-down control structure that you're talking about that is run through like CIA, Intel. It's so ingrained into the schools and the entertainment industry. I mean, pretty much. A lot of it runs on autopilot, I think. But if a person of interest gets flagged, they know how to find that person and you know whatever it is that they do with that person, or at least how to try to do it. I mean, I firmly believe that those of us kids who were in the Starseed Envoy program, I firmly believe that the CIA knew who we were, or at least they had a profile, you know, like they knew what to look for. They knew that we were coming. They may not have known who the individuals were, but they knew what to look for, you know.
Hmm.
And they may have known who the individuals were too. I don't know, but they definitely had something in place to monitor us and control us. And you know, I don't know what all else. I mean, I remember being visited by alien grays as a child. Did that ever happen to you? I wouldn't be surprised if you said yes. Um, and I don't ever remember being harmed by them. It was more like they would just, you know, like talk to me and stuff.
I
Or
feel like they were probably wanting to study you to see what it meant. I bet they knew about the incoming star seeds. The Grand Convergence was a big event that lots talked about at the time in 1987. So they knew there was a huge waft of star seeds coming, and they knew it existed beforehand too. You're one of them. But there was a huge collection coming, and they probably were like, let's see where this is going to go. They probably just wanted to be in advance of what it meant, because they would have known astrology, because the queens of old have always used astrology to predict how their kingdom was going to go, when to start wars, when to do it, anything. I do not believe that the elites, the top of the top, have forgotten about that.
no,
So they would
definitely
know.
haven't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you just look in, you know, all of the entertainment that was produced in the last half century with today's eyes. You really go back and watch, like, if it's any sort of like fantasy fiction type stuff, almost all of it. Some people will say it's predictive programming. I don't think that's what it is. I mean, maybe, but I think it's more like, I think it's more like it was put there. You could call it the predictive programming, or you could say maybe somebody had a plan to put that stuff there for us so that we would remember it when this time came, so that we could remember who we are and go back and be like, oh, the universe was trying to tell us about this all along, just so we would be ready.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's where I see, like, because some talk of the Illuminati as actually a good thing. There's the Cabal, which is not, and a lot of people think the Cabal and the Illuminati are the same, but I do not. I've studied this stuff extensively, and it's clear that there is a group that holds stuff back on purpose. Like in the early 1900s, when technology was actually coming online faster, like people talk about Nikola Tesla being crushed and stuff, and how it being a gas plot, and there was a lot of other technologies suppressed at the time. And that's an arguable point, but there's something to be said about the fact that we did go on and create the atom bomb and apparently use it. There's also information that we did not use it, that was stopped. Otherwise, Japan is tiny. Then it's like they made it obvious by using it on the tiniest country. Like, you can't just hide this in the tiniest country. Either you're lying about what nuclear does, or you didn't drop a nuke, right? And so the Illuminati is apparently like orchestrating stuff, but like you say, to drop things so that we awaken fast, because it's awakening time regardless, but also awaken safely. Like, our consciousness needs to be at certain levels, like AI, for example. Like, for AI to be here for us, we need to be at a certain consciousness level for it to be optimal. Because everything, well, like most anything, could be a good thing if it's brought into the right frame of consciousness. Like, if I won $1 million, but I was still drinking, not good. If I won $1 million now, I'd open a church. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference in where you are in your life when things come to you. And that's technologies, advancements in life. Like, there's so many things to this that I think we do see, whether it's actual humans or just an overarching, like people call it the Galactic Federation or whatever you want to call it, that has a hand in definitely puppeteering what's happening.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that, Diana. And I'll just tell you flat out, I in the last couple of weeks, I've been getting direct transmissions in my YouTube feed from Thoth, and one of the messages I got, like, this is like, here's the mystery teachings of Thoth that everyone's been waiting for 3,000 years. You can have it. It's like this kind of stuff, and it really is that kind of stuff. Like, and I might have even shared one of them with you. And in one of these, he says directly, the reason why you can't just sit down and awaken is because certain neural pathways have to be connected in your body, or else if you try to do like a full Kundalini awakening, it will destroy you. And that's why it has to be slow walked. There's no other way to do it. It's not out of malice. It's not out of trying to keep secrets from people. It's because literally there's no other way to do it without ruining somebody. So, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, I 100% believe that. And I've had that in my own gnosis, in my own discussions, because I have conversations with my guides sometimes where sometimes it's on lock and it's actually a conversation. Sometimes it's just knowings. But one of those things, and then visceral experiences, like I've had like what I've described as an anointing a couple years ago. I think that was 22. So 3 years ago now, where I had like a top down anointing, and it was just like, all my rage from that point was gone. Like I was a rageaholic. And even when I was awakening, I still had this rage because my astrology is mostly fire. Like I am predominantly almost all fire. So it's like born to be, but at the same time, you must overcome that. And then literally I had this entire experience and, you know, the top down warmth, golden, like boom, like for real. And I was forever changed. And I've had other experiences where it's just like a snap. That was the biggest, that was the most change. But there's been other snaps where just like you almost feel a phase shift of a timeline and you're just all of a sudden some old party was gone forever. And there's a new, more expanded part that's there. And it's just little step at little step because, and you see this with drugs, like my husband's a nurse. So anytime he says this fact, I just, it's a trigger. But he talks about how cannabis leads to psychosis and there's a risk, like there's an increased amount of schizophrenia because of cannabis. And it's like, but that's not cannabis causing schizophrenia. That's cannabis connecting people like acid used to, but more gentler, but connecting people to spirit and soul, but them not being ready for it. It's why, like, if you're a spiritual person and you do acid, you're going to have a wonderful time. If you're just a party person and you do it at a concert, that's a toss up. You might not, because it's about your consciousness and it's raising your consciousness. But if you're not ready, if you have too many blocks, if you've like, this is where your chakras come in. And I know that ends up being very base spirituality because it is 101. If you don't clear out the chakras first, every little bit, and this is why you go into so many dark nights of the soul in your first awakening. And that's not exactly a bad thing, but it's why you want to do it slowly, because you can go into full psychosis. And we've all had moments like where we went a bit fringe. Like I went a bit psychosis at a point in 2016 when Trump was first coming in. I thought the apocalypse was coming. I knew a bioweapon was coming too. I knew a bioweapon was coming. I just thought it was going to be zombies. Like that's how off.
Well, I mean, we do have a form of that. I mean,
and then COVID came. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, you look at like the violence and the hate rhetoric that's going on. People cheering for, you know, a man who was murdered on stage. You know, we can say, oh, maybe it was staged or fake, whatever. As far as we know right now, a man was killed live on stage, right? For everyone in the world to see. And
a 31-year-old man with little kids too. So for people to celebrate that, no matter who the person is, he could have been a KKK member, but I don't think he was. I think he was a good person. And he's still 31-year-old with little kids. Hello.
Yeah. So, yeah, so to me, and you have people like cheering for it. To me, it feels like we're in the zombie apocalypse. Like who else cheers for an innocent or you know a nonviolent person to be murdered like that, except zombies? And if you go back and watch The Crazies from 1973, which is about a government bioweapon that escapes into a city and all the things that they have to do to deal with that. I mean, it's a lot like COVID, and it turns people into, you know, pardon the association, but it basically turns people into Antifa protesters. If you watch the movie, that's basically what they become, and the government response, which is really what the primary focus of that movie is very similar to what they did during COVID.
Oh yeah, I believe that fully. And there's something in the university systems. And ironically, this happened when he was touring at a college in America. Because it's funny because I was just saying on our show the other day how I didn't go to university at first. And then even when I did it later, it was online for my ministry. But I didn't go to university because in high school, they made me choose if I wanted like so many like, cause I chose, you get to choose the way your credits are in Canada and you have to choose. And I wanted to take this classes and it didn't line up with what would work to get into university. And that crushed me, but I was refusing to give up drama. Yeah. But actually it saved me because I could have easily been an Antifa person. Easily. I was very wounded, very damaged, raised an atheist, very angry. And I was woke. I was early woke. One of the first things I heard, and I was still waking up, but not be fully awake. Like this is 2017, 16. When did Jordan Peterson first come around? But we're hearing about the first beginning of Jordan Peterson, and my brother-in-law is telling me that he might go to jail because he won't say their pronouns. And I'm like, good, he should. That's what I said. I said, good, he should go to jail for not saying their pronouns. And I was already beginning loving awakening. So this is why you never want to stall in your awakening. But very quickly, they started making me watch the videos, and I was like, oh my God, he's a genius. And my entire life switched. He's why I started doing my show. He's why I started cleaning my room and getting my life together, because there was so much big missing piece of life. But because I listened to him, because I learned, because I stayed awake and aware. Where if you stay a zombie and just like, if I had to just state, nope, he should go to jail, I refuse to watch those videos, I just know what I know because I know what I know. Like, that's the worst. And the university should never teach you that ever. That's the opposite of what it should teach you.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of funny because, you know, I didn't get to go to university either. And for a long time in my life, like, I was upset about that. Like, you know, I was upset with my parents for not investing in my education or life, like, at all. And you know, I could probably still say a thing or two about that, but
mine didn't either. So I feel you.
Yeah,
I had to pay for it myself.
but at the very least, you know, it did save me from being in a situation where they were trying to indoctrinate me at a young age. And, you know, probably at that age, you know, 18, 19, 20, I was probably still impressionable enough at that age that I would have been indoctrinated at least some. And by the time I did go back and get my degree from a distance school, around the time I was 30, I at least had the emotional maturity not to be indoctrinated. Like when they made me take, you know, Karl Marx sociology and stuff like that, you know, it's like, oh, well, this is, you know, I would read it and be like, okay, well, yeah, I guess someone could conclude that if they wanted to, but that's not the only conclusion you could draw here, you know? And so, you know, it did save me in some ways. But at the same time, I'm still a little, one of these days, I don't know. I might, when we come to the new Earth, and we're swimming around in our Scrooge McDuck vault, I might go back and get an art degree or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I did end up going to art school. I didn't go to university, but I went to an art college, and that's where I got my journalism diploma. And it had a little bit of it only because they were warning us. And that was so personal to me. It didn't hit me because I wasn't about to be ashamed for being myself when I grew up poor and abused. And you're telling me I was here on my own dollar. My mom co-signed the loan and I didn't hear the end of it. And they started telling us that you have to leave the province if you're white and you'll never get a job if you're white. And then the school was it was very mixed. So whites were not predominant. We were maybe half the population, and then it was half or even less than half, which is fine. But like they're constantly putting us down, but we're not the majority. So we actually felt like minorities. Like we look around, they made us feel very self-conscious. They made us feel bad about being ourselves. And these teachers, most of them were white themselves. So it's just hilarious. They're like, yeah, it's not our date because they were older. They're like, yeah, you can't do it anymore. Like no jobs in Ontario for you. And it was just like such an experience, which I'm glad I didn't go to university about, because in that experience, I was actually a part of it versus if I went to university, you look around, there's 200 other white people. And then they tell you this, you could be like, yeah, we are the bad guy. Oh yeah, we're the bad guy. But sitting like in a college room with like not being the majority at all, it was like a totally different experience. So I could see how, you know what I mean? Because when you're telling someone something, but they're immersed in the situation, it hits a lot differently than when you tell them something, but they're not even a part of the situation. Really, they can be more ideologic about it. I think a lot of these people, these Antifa people, need to just get more invested probably in this themselves with awakening.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, I think, and I'm not trying to be like a doomer, but I think that we're going to find that for a lot of these people, it's probably too late. You know, I'm not going to speak for any individual, but I mean, it was like 2 or 3 years ago, I encountered someone online who was fully under the control of what I'll call the mind virus. It's a real thing. It's not just metaphor. Like there is like some kind of an AI machinery that can take control of people. It's just like the Borg. And I encountered one of these people that was like, I don't know, it was like the hive mind of this consciousness.
It's the egregore.
This person. And we had a dialogue, and it like remote viewed me and read my mind or something. And I knew it did because it was clear that it had done so. And yeah, that was like 2 years ago. Yeah,
I'm in weird now. I know. I'm like, was that 1 year ago or 5 years ago?
Yeah, that was 2 years ago, and that was a very unsettling experience. It took me a bit to process like just what had happened there, and but so I know that these people are
Agent Smith.
are out there.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they get taken over by egregores. I've had it, and I get them. My husband used to be a lot more Agent Smithy. He was a lot more difficult in my early awakening. We had a lot more issues. But I started by catching him in Agent Smith and walking it back. So anybody with an Agent Smith person, you can save them and walk them back. So they say what they say. Then you say, why did you say that? Then they say a real half-ass why. And then you dig that apart and say, why did you say that? I'm good at arguing, so not everyone might be able to do this. But I could take it all the way back to basically get him to say, I don't know why I said it. So like you're saying, something went in my head, picked something up that would trigger me technically, but it was so off the cuff that like they gave like, hello, Agent Smith. And I've seen it from lots of places where people you just see them switch and you just see them say something so ridiculous and rude. Even sometimes it's like, why do you think you can say that? Because we trigger them so much. I think they allow in, or that egregore is already a part of them, right? Every major system has a very powerful egregore. Like you were saying earlier, how these things like the cabals and the CIAs, a lot of it takes care of itself. It's a living, breathing egregore, because when an egregore gets so big, that's what it wants. It wants full sentience, and it can go on and become a god. Like some of our gods that we talk about might never actually have been fleshly real. They're egregores we created, and then they become full-on archetypes in the collective. And that's what happens with a lot of these things, and they have greater control over people. So when you identify with that's why if I ever talk about politics, I am not buying into anything. I don't agree with the system. I just agree with being mature and pragmatic and moving forward intelligently, but don't ever buy into a system. So sometimes you might have to leapfrog and step on something. So like vote for a certain person if that's the better option, because there's no other way. Not voting doesn't work. If you want to go, I mean, we can't there's no other option that isn't inciting violence when it comes to these things. But you have to be very aware of egregores. Every step you take in your job, wherever you are, even our small little collective, like our social panel, gets itself an egregore and gets itself whispering in people's ears. And and if you're not sovereign and discerning, you yourself can, like anybody can be taken over by an egregore, that kind of thing. Like your church, you're saying it's good your church is that you're in that church because like you're a very stable presence that just doesn't seem like you get taken up by egregores. And that's exactly what we need, is more people that can see through it all and be like, sometimes something in an egregore is something that you actually have to do, because it's something of living life, you know what I mean? But you don't buy into it. You just do it because you have to pragmatically, but continue on. Like we don't have to keep buying into any of these systems. We make our own system. We decide who we are. We decide what our morals are. We decide all of it, and then thereby create our reality that way. Because the next video I have is exactly what you're saying, how some people are just too far gone. And France is in that situation right now, specifically Paris, which I'd always wanted to go to. So super sad, but because of all places. And I always had a feeling the French Revolution never finished. And this kind of proves it.
Paris. This is a protest called Let's Block Everything, Block on Tout. This is an expression of hostility towards not only Emmanuel Macron's president, but the country's entire governing class. We can see there a restaurant, live pictures there now. You can see the emergency services have moved in, dousing what appears to be a restaurant in central Paris, set on fire. These protests have been condemned by France's interior minister, who is blaming this on, it's not a citizens' movement in any way, he said. It's been hijacked by the ultra-hard left, and some of them are determined to carry out violent actions. There is an insurrectional mood in the air. says France's interior minister. And we can certainly see that seems to be the case in Paris. And these protests, Chris Hope, let's get you in, they're expected to rock out across French cities all across the nation. The French are extremely unhappy with the way they're being governed and supposed austerity cuts.
That's right. The original sin goes back to Emmanuel Macron for ordering that surprise election last year that made it even more uncertain about how to get measures through the French Parliament. They want to try and remove rights and some of the benefits are felt by workers and pensioners, and so it goes on. And it is not, they are not happy in France. I mean, I know we were much mocked as a country by France when we went through a number of prime ministers post the vote to leave the European Union. Well, they've gone through as many, I think, 5 or so.
Macron's gone through 7 of them.
7, is it?
7.
Yeah. So I think the idea that we are a basket case internationally after Brexit, well, have a look at the pictures there. It almost certainly is going towards the idea there may need to be another general election in France and try and end the uncertainty. But right now, that is not what the France wants to portray.
Nigel Nelson, it's the left that do these things all the time. Everyone slags off the far right. This is the far left.
I think that this is actually just chaos in France. I mean, if we think our unions are bad, that when they get the bit between their teeth, they really go for it. Yeah. So what you've just seen is the collapse of the French government, instability to follow you would expect. The basic thing is France has been living beyond its means. They're trying to control the budget. People don't want that, and it's turned into rioting.
Exactly. And I love the pettiness there that England's throwing in, like, oh, we're so much better than you. You gotta love, like, I remember seeing old stuff, France and England fighting about who's fancier. They're still doing it. That's so funny.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy to see.
You're
that
both
still
fancy guys.
Still happening.
Oops, no, sorry. But no, not funny. And that was a couple days ago. And England's been going through something similar. And I think because these countries are older, they hold a lot more of that karmic memory. They have a lot more to actually work through. We have the DNA of that because we're all from those varied places. Like my DNA is from Scotland, Wales, France, like so many other places, because we come here and we mix and we mix and we mix. And then we end up connected to all of them. And so we do feel it to a point, but they're the concentrated dose. Like Sam talks about seeing ghosts all the time. I'm like, yeah, because you're living in such an ancient country. Like we don't have that because we're brand new.
Yeah. Well, as far as we know, I mean, I think there actually was civilization here for a lot
Lemuria.
longer.
I think Lemuria was here.
Well, Lemuria and Tartaria.
Mm-hmm. I thought Tartaria was in Asia. I've been making a video on Tartaria, but it's helping me learn about it too.
Yeah, I mean, Tartaria was primarily in Asia, but they span the globe, and there's definitely Tartarian buildings in North America. There's a lot of pictures out there that show like these buildings that, you know, they have like the classical Victorian architecture, and then there's like 2 or 3 floors buried underground, and they've excavated, and you can see like, oh, this used to be a taller building, and somehow it got buried, and they just decided to treat it like this was now the ground level. And it's all over North America. And I don't know if it's exactly Tartaria, but it's part of that same, it's like that same culture, almost like today there's like a global culture, right? We're America, you're Canada, you know, UK and Russia are over there, but there is also kind of a global civilization that connects us all, and probably there was something like that for the Tartarian age, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. No, I believe it. Absolutely. And you can with the flood and Plato, I just recently learned that, and I didn't, because I believe in the flood anyways, but he talks about the pre-civilization, and we know he talked of Atlantis, but he talked of more as well. And he dates it as happening like 3,000 and something years before him. And then our time to him, that's exactly when Atlantis is prophesied to have been here. So the timeline actually lines up pretty exactly for these things to be true. And knowing that we have more, like, because they make us think that we were like just cavemen not that long ago, when that is not true. We've been civilized for hundreds of thousands of years. And like the dinosaurs were millions of years ago, and they want us to think we were cavemen until very recently. Like, no, I believe like there's been humanoid species that were cavemanish for out millions of years, but us, we've been here for hundreds of thousands of years. Like 300,000 years ago is when we fell from magic, in my estimation. That's what I believe in, is the pan reality, where we were more fairy-like, we were more elven-like, we were more magical. But then other races showed up. Some have called them the Hebrews and Martians separately, two different races that came here because their own planets were destroyed. And then they slowly corrupted us into what we became. And that's why all these falls started happening. Like, because that one that happened like 12,000 years ago wasn't the first. There was one 25,000 years ago. And then they keep looking, and they can see these major cataclysmic events that just take us back a notch, but we keep popping back out because we were always civilized. So they can only do the forgetting for so many thousands of years before we come back again.
Yeah. I think the end of the fairy age, I like that. I like that term, the fairy age. I think it's actually a lot more recent. I think it's more like, 200 or 300 years ago. I think if you look back to like the Renaissance and all the classical art and stuff that they were building during that time, some people say that was the millennial kingdom. And I would say there's enough evidence to back that up, to at least consider it, and that we are now living in what Revelation 20 calls the short season after the millennial reign of Christ, when Satan is loosed upon the earth to deceive the nations and make war one last time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can really feel that now. You really feel, because people think it's getting worse. I don't think it's so much getting worse. I think it's like released as in we can see it. It's like there's something in the code of us that's taking down, like something with our ascension. That's why authenticity comes first and foremost, because it's what is called for, and it's the only thing that starts to feel natural. Because like I remember being younger and playing characters in games, even though we didn't realize that's what was happening at the time. That felt natural. Like that's why it was easier to be a sheeple, or just not. I was never a sheep at all. I was always an anarchist, but I wasn't awakened. It's not helpful if you're just in that state versus the awakening. But with it comes like this increase of authenticity to degrees that I didn't even know, like the volume needed to be turned up on, to like new basic discoveries that shift us in our actual consciousness. And that allows us to see like the Lucifer, the Satan, that allows us to see like these rich people going off to an island, that's suspicious. All these children going missing, that's suspicious. Like, and actually starting to see it to the point where it's like, why is no one doing something? Like the kids, when Trump got into office, he's like, I'm going to let all the kids out. And he did. Not to their parents. He just let them out. There's one story, there's tons of stories of people like going to people that weren't their parents. But there's this one so obvious story of this van that strolls up and takes 40 kids to one location. And they just say, sure, here you go, and hand them all 40 kids. Where'd you take all 40 kids? Like, there's so many things. It's like, but nobody did anything. No one looked into this. And there's just so much that's just very obvious, but I think it's always been happening.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. I don't know what else to say about that, because I see it too, and it, I've seen it happening, and I think it ties in a lot to like the fraternal societies, the Freemasons. I think it's a lot worse than anyone realizes, and these people very often, they are church leaders, deacons, preachers, whatnot, people that control the religious institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're judges and police. I just made a new friend a couple weeks ago. I'm working with a publisher to promote my book, and they referred me to another client of theirs, just give them a referral. And so we became friends. And she was just telling me last week that, she's kind of she's maybe a few steps ahead of us, but she's kind of in a similar situation as far as like she's creating things, writing books, and she's starting to become famous, gain some notoriety and stuff. And wouldn't you know it, she's got an ex-husband and a daughter, and her ex-husband is like basically one of these trafficker handler types. And and he's friends with the judge, friends with the lawyers. They've got her in family court, and they're threatening to take her daughter away. And she's got a friend who's an Eastern Star who reached out to her and is like, hey, if you want to become an Eastern Star, I'm sure that we can talk to all the right people and just make this problem go away. Like, literally, this happened to her. And so, yeah, it's still happening.
Yeah. But just bringing it to light more and more and more will be key. And then hopefully we have more people like the guy from the Freedom movie that actually do something and go let them out. I mean, I wish, but like to pretend I'm that kind of type. I know I talk like someone do something, but like I'm a little girl and I don't know what to do. But like, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like, what do we do? And so much as I'm just sitting here going, what do we do? But this is something I can do. Bring awareness.
A lot of us have been doing.
Right? Like awareness is key, so key. But then we need more people, like more FBI agents willing to default, more CIA agents willing to default and do what's right. The people that know who the people are and know what to do, like just do what's right and do what's authentic. So we're going to roll to a close. I have one more clip that's just funny, and then we'll close it down. Thank you for being here today, David, though. This was great.
Thank you for having me.
And definitely congratulations again on the movie.
Thank you.
Get the bill today and get in the encephalogram.
No, wait, that one's not funny. That's not the funny one. That would be more thought-provoking content.
Yeah.
Let's try. I'm doing what you said, though, David, and just picking the video files inside so we can make sure we have sound.
Awesome.
Comedian is an atheist. Almost every single comedian I know is an atheist. And I gotta tell you, from where I'm standing, it looks so fucking cool. Atheism, the cigarette of beliefs. Just leaning on your motorcycle like, you think there's something going on here? Get real! It is the motorcycle of philosophy. It's just like, born alone, die alone, ride alone. It's like that. And religion is like the station wagon I got from my mom. Like, bang, bang, honk if you love Jesus. It's just not as cool. But I, personally, I'm so tired of comedians burning down a straw man, making fun of people who believe in God, being like, do you really think a talking snake gave a naked lady in a poo? I'm like, come on, it's a metaphor, Ricky. Always true, sometimes really happened. Do you understand?
I love that one. I found that right after seeing Ricky Gervais live. We just saw him a couple weeks ago, and he was not funny. And I felt like he thought Canadians were dumb. I'm like, we're not dumb. This isn't funny.
Wow. That one was good, though. I liked it.
Yeah, no, I love him. He's good. He's a Christian comedian. We used to watch his show Crushing or something. I forget. Crashing on HBO. But yeah, so thank you so much for being here today, David. This is great. And thank you all audience for being here during our news and our broadcasting. If you ever have tips or anything that you want to send in, like for us to talk about, or clips more like, send it to awakening@transcendingascension.com. That's my email. So awakening@transcendingascension.com if you have any clips, and I will credit you for sending them. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, David. And we'll see you all again next time. Goodbye for now.
Round and round the world we spin. Who knows where we're going? Up into ascension we sail. Pop goes the matrix. Here we stand and here we rise. God resides inside you. You are God, and everything is pop goes the matrix. Children, you are deeply loved. Children, you are special. Never feel alone inside. God lives inside you.